Big Boo's name was Carrie, but Leah Delario. Hopefully you're done crying for Prince, because up next, Samira Wiley. She plays Nikki, Natasha Leone. And last but not least, it's Piper Taylor Schilling. So, having just watched the finale, which was a painful episode, I feel like we want to start with Samira. Talk a little bit about the reaction you had when you were told what was happening to Buse this season.
Oh, that thing that happened. Oh.
That thing.
You know, I think for anyone being a part of something like this for 4 whole years, something that I feel like we as a team helped create, it's really, really, really emotional being told that it's coming to an end. I felt a wealth of emotions in the beginning. I was scared, and I was hurt, and angry, and confused, and all of those kinds of things. But when time, with time passing and understanding what story we were trying to tell, and the message that we were trying to give to our viewers and our audience, I felt overwhelmingly honored by the task of being able to be the person, the vessel through which this story could be told. I wanted to be able to do it with integrity, and I wanted to be able to do it with as much heart as I could, and I felt like in order to do that, you need to be in it wholeheartedly. There can't be any resistance to it, and there has to be an incredible wealth of trust there between you and your fellow actors, between you and the creators of the show and the writers, and I felt like all of that was there, and I feel incredibly proud of what we all did.
Is there a stages of grief kind of thing? Like, do you try bargaining, or do you know that there's just no purpose at all?
No bargaining. I think that one thing that has made the show so successful is how daring the creators and the Genji Gohan and her team of writers have been in that room, and we don't really have too many bargaining discussions throughout the last however many seasons we have had, and that I think has made us who we are. The trust that we all have. So no, I didn't have that bargaining part.
And Dasha, the finale ends with you in a very particular position. I'm sort of curious what your reaction was when you saw that was how she was going to end, and why you sort of figured that this was the character who needed to be in that position with that gun at the end of the finale.
That's a good question. I'm always asking, do you shoot or do you don't shoot? But,
I can get there too, but you won't tell us. So.
No, I think that there was a kind of selfish moment where I, as an actor, kind of judged Dayanara for all the choices that she's made throughout the seasons. But I also wanted a breaking point of where she's had it. Where are we going to see the moment where she's like true to herself, honest with the situations, and is ready to face them? And I think it was that precise moment when she just decided to make a decision on her own. I was shocked first when I read. I was like, what's going to happen? Because then you worry, are you going to continue to be here? Are you going to have a job here? Is Dayanara going to get, her own taste of the other side, which is freedom, or not? So there's a lot of insecurities and worry, but ultimately, as Samira stated, Genji, the writers, they have a way of telling these stories that are authentic. So you could only learn to sympathize and wait for what's to come as we do in life. We kind of can't predict things. We can just, follow the journey. So that's ultimately where, I stand with Dayanara, and we'll see what happens.
Well, you guys all obviously now know what Dayanara does with the gun. Have you given any thought to how your characters would have reacted if they were in that position at the end? You know, how would Piper respond if the gun had been in her hands at the end?
That's a trick question.
What would Piper do with the gun? Do you think Piper would end up with the gun? I don't think she'd be in that. I mean, I don't know. I think it would start 10 steps backwards, that she probably wouldn't be that close to the situation with the gun. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, and so.
I mean, it's a really good question. Can't you see it like both ways? I can sort of see it both ways.
I'm going down the road here. So what would Nikki do if the gun ends up in her hands there?
I'm sorry, I've never left the house before. And, I don't know. I think that Nikki's really about like self-destruction and not really taking it out on people. I don't really think that she like wants to be up against it. I think that she's also sort of aware that like having a big mouth is fun in certain situations and circles, that she gets away with it in prison, but ultimately like tries to avoid being in situations that are actually like violent or risky for her, because she's not dumb enough to think that she'll come out on top in those scenarios. So yeah, I think that she's ultimately a self-destructive character who would probably be like, all right, look, you guys, I have the gun, let's talk about this. All right, you know, I'm clearly holding this weapon, and I think we should all really give this some thought before we proceed. So let's just all calm down. I think it would that would be Nikki's speech with a gun, would sound something like that. And then like, you know, hope that like Boo or Alex or Red show up, and they're kind of just, and all of these people are also with me, and I'm about to pass along. But, I mean, I definitely think that in our, you know, like our little microcosm, like I always think about those. I worked with Tim Blake Nelson, the great actor, on this Holocaust movie, which suddenly seems so relevant. And it was called Gray Zone. And I remember that he gave an exercise. We were like munitions workers and kind of smuggling. We were like the underground war heroes in Auschwitz. It was based on a true story. And so we were like smuggling munitions like in the hems of our dress. It was myself and Mira Sorvino and Lisa Benavides. And so I remember that he kind of gave us this exercise, and for myself as somebody who was a child actor and never been to acting school, it was like he, you know, whispered in our ears, I guess, to each of us a number, and then it was like our job in rehearsal to sort of figure out who was the number one guy. And that really stuck with me, probably because, you know, I'd had so few lessons. I think like I really clung to the ones that I got along the way from the people I knew were heavy hitters. And I often think of our dynamic in prison in that way of like, definitely Red is, you know, somebody whispered in her ear, like, you're the 10, and Nikki is in there somewhere. Like, I'm definitely, you know, Yael, Lorna, like, I definitely tell her what to do, you know, so like my number is above hers, and it's very obvious, but, you know, and I think we often see the ways that kind of switches in and out throughout the season. Like, your character goes through that so often throughout, you know, the show, and so I think in many ways I would probably, like, Nikki would know her own number, and sort of pass it on to like Red or to Alex and be like, this is not my situation to handle.
Leah, do you have an answer? Oh, I mean, Samira, you can answer too.
Oh,
but
no, it's fine. That part happened after the other.
Exactly.
part
So
happened.
I didn't.
So it's a Boo situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, Boo is not actually violent, and I think that I'm not sure if some people get that because she poses violence so much. That's her way of surviving in a situation. But she has said many times, I'm not a lover, I'm not a lover. I'm sorry, I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. I'm a total lover. And you know, various situations like that. She's really not into blood, she's really not into violence, she's very smart. That's how she deals with things. I think that's one of the reasons that Nikki and Boo are Nikki and Boo. You know what I mean? On the other hand, Leah DeLaria would have shoved that gun up that boy's ass and shot him into the colon. And that's acting. That was the difference between Leah DeLaria and Boo.
And Uzo?
She could do anything, really. It's like, the jury's out on that one. Let's just be honest. I don't know what Suzanne. I feel like Suzanne would probably pick up a gun and start like attempting to dismantle it or something like that, or like explain to you like the like recent 15-year history of like the NRA versus like Second Amendment rights and like the power, like the crisis in Chicago or something. Like I think that would be my
Now, I know that when you guys are acting on a show that can sort of veer wildly between things that are very funny and then very extremely dramatic, you're not so much playing comedy or playing tragedy, but last season had, or rather season 4, because I know you guys are well into season 5, it had a very clear arc where it started off almost being surprisingly funny, and it sort of lured people in, and then the last few episodes were sort of a kick to the stomach. And I'm curious from your perspectives, can you feel a tonal shift when you're in the middle of an arc of episodes like that? Do you feel, okay, this is getting dark, this is heading someplace dark? For any of you who sort of have a feeling on that.
Well, I think that the dynamic of the show operates in such a way that we're sort of all these little orbits, our own individual orbits circling each other. And I know that I can certainly feel when my own character's storyline takes a turn, and that can happen on a dime. But I think what's kind of so remarkable about the show is that we can be kind of living in parallel universes that are opposite from each other. You know, when someone can be living through something that's extraordinarily heightened and painful and raw and dramatic, and another person can be experiencing something polar opposite from that.
I think also when you have communities like we have, it's very relatable to life. In different communities, different things are happening, so that at the same time, she can go through a tone of like comedy while I can be going through a tone of tragedy, but we're living parallel to one another, but we're yet, it feels so, I don't want to say world, but it feels like the living world nowadays, where there's things that we're blindsided to because we're not living it in the present, but there seems to be a connection once you're exposed to it. And I think that that's where the beauty of the show comes in, that you can portray all these elements of stages of where there's tragedy, where there's comedy, but then we relate to them in such a different way. So it's once you get the script, you can, but I think it's relatable to each character, depending on where they're at.
I know when I read the script where they brand Hyper with a swastika, that I remember thinking at the time and feeling at the time, we've just gone to the next fucking level, y'all. I mean, wow. I mean, that one really opened my eyes in a big way. And yeah, that level of intensity and drama, it just really struck me.
I think I would echo what Leah is saying in that I think, obviously the show is being shot as we're making it, so we're reading it, all of us, mostly for the first time and having that experience of it. And I think that what Genji and her team, in my opinion at least, what Genji and her team of writers do that I think is interesting is buoyant and I don't want to go so far as to say light, but certainly as comedic as the fair can be in the beginning. They always are successful at dropping in something that isn't quite, it's not foreboding, but it certainly reminds us of the world we're in and the stories that potentially stand to be told. And I think an example of that is with the branding, that there is always a threat of violence, that we never get too far away from, of forgetting that this is a story about people who are incarcerated, that danger lurks just around the corner. And in this season, I think we saw those elements that were maybe a notch more heightened than we'd come to know them in seasons past, so that it sets up the opportunity for that final freight train to come through so successfully.
And Taylor, that arc is so specific because it starts off as a comedic arc almost. It's Piper as crime lord, and you think, okay, this is kind of funny. She's selling candies. That's humorous. And then it goes to this place where she's branded with swastika, and that is obviously so very not. How did you sort of track the arc that she was on, and did you, as kind of the person who has played this character for 4 years, are you sort of custodial about the things she does, and did you have worries about the things she was doing and whether or not she would do them as you went along there?
Such an interesting question, because I've never, I mean, it's a very unique experience to play, and it's always so interesting to be in a room full of actors, but the experience of playing a character for 4 years is fascinating and unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I like that word custodial, because I do start to feel that way. I feel a sense of piety over Piper and where she's going and what she's learned, and if she's moving forward or if she's kind of sliding backwards. And there's been a pattern in Piper Chapman of kind of trying on different identities and then them not necessarily working out the way that she anticipated. And this situation, though it became particularly violent, really beautifully sort of fit into that template. So I kind of liken it to that idea where you're told something, you know, it's the idea that somebody kind of whispers something to you, then screams it at you, and then eventually, you know, somebody's throwing a brick at your car windshield or something like that. But she continually, the stakes keep getting ratcheted up, and she keeps behaving in the same way. So I think it'll be interesting to see what sort of clicks her into a new pattern.
Well, for any of the rest of you, sort of how does that custodial sense of your characters manifest itself? You know, when you see the bad decisions these characters make, because there are so many bad decisions leading to darker and darker places. Do you ever stop and go, wait, she wouldn't do this. This isn't the character I've been playing for 3 years, or do you have faith, I guess, at all times?
I think it's my job as an actor to come up with the reasons why they would do the things that the writers have written and the director is asking you to do. I mean, I'm just speaking, and frankly, I've never been to acting class. I'm a stand-up comic, and I learned that from Kate Mulgrew, doing a scene with Kate Mulgrew, where she literally said that out loud. Well, it's my job as an actor to do that, and I think a lot of actors waste a lot of time when I'm on a set questioning what a director's asking them to do. And look, you know, this is my job. I didn't write this fucking character. This is my job. You know, and sometimes it's fucking hard, but if it wasn't hard, everyone would fucking do it.
Anyone else want to follow that?
I mean, yeah, it's like it is.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, but I mean, it is stay in your lane, but it's an interesting thing because it's you know, like Taylor was saying, and you know, like it is true that that's a great word, like becoming a custodian of a character, and because the size of the show, there's us, and then there's like another at least 15 of us or something who are also, you know, could equally, you know, have seats on the stage in any given day. Like we're all have, you know, similar. I mean, we're a true ensemble in that sense, and then there's like a whole a host of other characters on top of it. So it's just like the size of it. We do sort of end up becoming these. It does have to be sort of a symbiotic in terms of like us kind of mirroring back to them. Like as we also, you know, are here for years, we are able to mirror back to the writers. Like, hey, oh, I understand. Like sometimes you have to ask questions that are just like.
the scope of the thing is like, I mean, it's fucking Spartacus, like daily around there. And so it is a tricky sort of a nuanced thing, I think, to kind of like figure out where we sit in the larger arc, kind of like what day is it, how many hours have gone by. Like, I know that for me, you know, as somebody who's always playing this kind of, you know, drug business, it's like, it's too much junkie business. I'm like, am I high? I'm not high. I'm high. I'm not high. I'm witty while I'm high. You know what I mean? And it's like, thank God I was a fucking junkie so I can justify 90% of it. Because, you know, good luck to anybody, you know, trying to, you know what I mean? Like, at least I have like some sort of touchstone of like, you know, it is true though. I was able to leave the house once in a while. Like, it's because to me, I'm often like, I think that, you know, would Nikki really be like still trying to be like, hey, listen, you know, Lorna, I think we should get back together while I'm like kicking heroin, like, so I am often sort of in the throes of, and the incredible thing about our show is time and time again, fucking Genji is like the ultimate puppet master and mastermind, and she knows exactly what she's doing. Like, we're sort of talking about it, like the beginning of the season, we usually have a feeling like, all right, so it's kind of, it is funny, right? And then all of a sudden, like, you know, episode 8 or something will hit, and it's like, uh-oh. It is not going well for the prison. Like, shit just took a turn. And so, you know, in other words, we are very much being like looked after on an individual arc basis, but because of the nature of how kind of, you know, just dropped in there we are, you know, and also we don't all work like, you know, for the full, you know, 8-day or 10-day episode. We usually work like 1 day or 2 days in an episode. So it is a lot. Like, we do have to kind of be in communication to a certain degree. Within the parameters of like, you know, our job is to fucking say our things. I'm gonna stop cursing.
Well, you raised something that interests me because this is one of the truest ensembles on
Yeah.
TV. And you look at sort of the different characters who have had the focal point episodes, and it's like 20 or 30 at this point, and that's remarkable. I'm curious about how you maintain the energy level and the connection level in the weeks when you have 2 lines of dialogue and you're just in the background of things versus the episodes where, you know, your name is on every page.
I go with an 8-ball and a couple of hookers.
I find watching Game of Thrones can be very helpful because I'm like, when I watch that show, I understand that characters that have an existence, but when they pop in, I'm like, oh, there's the dragon. I know the dragon was coming back. Like, you know, so as a fan of that show, it's easier for me to understand probably what the experience of our show is. It takes it out of ego and into the experience of like entertainment a bit because you realize that like characters go on. Anyone else?
Well, no, I want to hear from anyone else. Just, you know, how do you maintain the energy, and how does the energy change from week to week, episode to episode?
Well, personally, I genuinely enjoy reading the scripts. Like, I look forward to it still. So that's a huge energizer. You know, we just got a script last week. Won't say what number. But we just got a script last week, and I remember it came, and I can't remember what I was doing that day particularly, but whatever I was doing, I remember Adrienne Moore, who plays Black Cindy. I saw her that evening. Oh, I remember. We went to dinner that evening, and she was like, have you read the script? And I was like, no, I'm going home right now. You know what I mean, to read it. And I was genuinely excited to go home and read it, you know? I think that's a piece of it. And it's a good time. You know, we have a good time making it, and I think that is a fueling point of going to work, you know, the good time being had, and that you know you're working with people who are excellent at their craft, not just their job, but their craft of acting. And that's thrilling to know. I think that's something that keeps you elevated.
You know, for me, this is like very special. It's one of my first things as an actress, being able to call myself an actress. And there are times where I've had to be in the background, and I'm like, I want to play. When do I get to play? But then there's a moment where you realize that the time, like when I reflect, and I'm like, 4 years have gone by. And you sit there and you take that moment as an actor to say, there's so many actors that would love to be in the position that you are, not because I'm ungrateful, but this is true, it crosses your mind that you take a moment and you just want to observe, and the moment that you start observing and just digesting your surrounding as an actor, which we listen first, right? That's when you realize that your moment is your moment, and as an actor, I have to understand that there's a time and a place for when you are to work, but there's also a time when you don't have to actually be the storyline of the moment to be a working actor. So it just snaps before you and you realize that, you know what, I'm part of a great ensemble. It's an ensemble, it's not about me, because we all have egos, right? Those that say that we don't, we do. As an actor, you want that opportunity. But the way that the show has been written, we all have had a moment to shine, a moment to collaborate, a moment to experience. And so it just settles you back down and it grounds you again. And you're like, you know what? This is amazing. This is a journey. And this is a journey that it takes you through all these moments.
You know, I would say that also, like, we're very, very heavily bound to each other in a way that I think is, you know, like, pretty specific to our show. And as somebody who's been doing this, like, since I'm a kid, I mean, I've never had the experience of this show. And so I think we're also very heavily invested. And for sure, we all have egos. We're all, like, serious, you know, characters, whatever. But part of that is, like, an intense, like, passion for each other and wanting to see each other, like, have those moments too. So, you know, for in a way that I've never experienced with any other, like, show or job before. Things are much, you know, so for example, with Wiley, like, I mean, when we read that script, we were, like, fucking devastated as a unit. I mean, it was, like, more a platoon experience of, you know, that we go to, like, war together for years at a time, and, like, we lost, like, our most valuable soldier. I mean, we were wrecked. Like, we would have, like, crying, like, mass sessions, and Wiley would have to be like, I don't want to talk about this anymore, like, enough,
Like,
I gotta get through the episode. That, I mean, those last days on set were, like, you know, harrowing and uplifting, and, like, us, like, you know, all, like, just eating, like, chicken and, like, listening to music and weeping, and I mean, somebody else speak to it, but just to give a sense of really, like, our experience is such, like, deep link to this show in a very specific human and heavy way that it's, I do think that's what helps us transcend that it's about any one of us at any moment, is we also want to get to see it be about, you know, the others of us as well. Like, it's a devastating hit for us, for example, when we miss a storyline of, like, one of our internal favorites, because we love having, you know,
It's like, it's become this really equally as exciting as it is to watch watch the characters explode and grow and blossom. I mean, it's been one of the most exciting experiences of my life to watch my friends grow and blossom and change and develop in this way. So I mean, I like that idea of us sort of being bound to each other, because it has been this pretty phenomenal, singular experience that I don't know if we'll ever have again in our lives. I think this is, like, very individual, and I don't know, I kind of liken it to, like, you know, it's like some sort of motley sorority that you, like, finally found. Like the weird, I don't know, it was like finally the right group, you know.
Yeah, but, like, that really, like, counts for something. I remember, like, texting with Genji after this election and just being like, Jesus fucking Christ, what just happened? And, you know, after that, I mean, we are really, like, also linked to this show in a way that, I mean, like, we're the wall, you know what I mean? Like Delaria and I were joking on the, like, day before we were gonna fly out here, like, fucking build a wall around this show, cause, like, we're a mess, you know what I mean? Like, if this ship is going down, like, we are the very essence of the thing that's going down with it, and therefore, what an honor to get to be on this particular show at this particular time, and, like, it's too late, we can't take it back, and I think that there's, you know, we take great pride in feeling like, you know, aligned with the thing that, like, you know, Samira was saying in the beginning of really, you know, getting to be kind of vessels for also whatever, when we don't write it, we get the privilege of, getting to act stuff that actually feels like more important than, Melrose Place or whatever. Not to knock on Melrose Place, it's everybody's favorite show. But, so that too.
I want to make sure we get some questions from the audience. Oh, that one went up very quickly.
Hello, Pete. Hi. I love every one of you guys on the stage. I need you to know that. Not since Christmas Cell Block H have I fallen in love. I love you guys.
Frankie, right? Frankie was your favorite character. Thank you.
No, actually, me was. Frankie and me both. I love them both. I did. They're wonderful. But I want to ask about two storylines that I want to ask. One is Samir's, because please, rest assured, when a writer writes you out, they write you back in next year as a ghost. Okay? So please don't think you're gone. That would be and the thing about Boo, my goodness, you're amazing, because the way you stick up to your friends. So here's my question. How can a writer convince himself to make better a man who raped the hell out of your girlfriend? And I know that you're not gay girlfriends, but your girlfriends. You know what I mean? So you got her back. How can you, I'm looking at them and they're trying to make this guy be okay. That man needs therapy. By the way, I'm not just an actress, I'm a licensed counselor. You can't talk to the writer. Tell him to talk to Sunshine. I'm on Facebook. You can find me. Seriously though. You can't. It's not okay to do that to the degree that he did that to that person. And okay, it's next season. I'm better now. Really? No, tell him to stop that. I just wanted to share that with you. I love every one of you guys.
I'm not sure. I felt like there was a question. Okay. You totally have a question, I can tell. Okay.
Yeah, so you guys are amazing. My question is, in a room full of actors, was there ever a point in your career that you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Every day.
Look at us.
Who wants to go first?
I need to speak to that because it's very hard for women as it is as a whole in Hollywood. And for me, I feel like, girl, you just started. Like, you need to sit down, you just started. But the short journey that I have in this industry, I've had beat myself up, auditioned my ass off, still learning, because I still, you always should practice on your craft, and still feel like there's something wrong with me. That light, I feel like, has to come from here, from within you. Forget about it at the end of the tunnel, because you're never gonna find it, especially in this industry.
I'll add to that. You think it's hard to be a woman in the industry? Try being a woman who gets called sir every fucking day of her life. And I think one of a couple of things whenever I speak at universities, I think it's stick-to-itiveness is one of the most important things that you need as an actor. You also have to believe in yourself. You have to love yourself.
Yes.
You're gonna hear no 1,000 more times than you're ever gonna hear yes. We're all professional actors in this room. We know this. And sometimes the despair will get you. Sometimes you'll see a friend of yours who has their own big hit show, and that little piece of you dies inside. And you just have to love yourself and believe in yourself and just keep going.
Angela and I speak about this all the time, about how we shouldn't compare their journeys. We do that all the time, like, damn, she's killing it. I mean, come on, guys, But we always have this conversation. You should not compare yourself as an actor to the other person's journey or where they're at, because that's when you really are setting yourself up for failure.
Yes, I would 100% agree with that, and I will just use the story that I tell when we talk about it, is I went to Boston University, go Terry. Did you guys go to BU? Did you go to BU? No way! Yes! Fire it up BU, proud to BU. Hashtag proud to BU. What? Wait, what?
We were in a club.
Oh! Wait, is that Alicia?
Yeah.
No!
CUNY?
Oh my god! I will be finding you after this. That's amazing. Yes, you are. She's an amazing singer. Yeah, like I would say, like, so when I was in school, my college coach, we used to talk about races, and she would say, and it's like maybe one of 3 great lessons I've ever been given in my life. And she would say, talk about running short distance. You know, I ran 100, 200 meters. And she would say how when you're running a race, you have to stay in your lane, focus on your lane, focus on your race. And she would say, do you know how much time you lose between looking back to your left or your right to see where your competitor is? You lose 1/10 of a second, right? Now, 1/10 of a second might not sound like anything in this life, but in 100 meters, that's not the difference between first and second. That's the difference between first and last. Okay? You need to focus on your own race. Don't spend your time looking left. Don't spend your time looking right. Spend your time focused down at the finish line and finishing and completing your own race. Looking at somebody else is not going to help your race. It's not like suddenly that person's going to carry you across the finish line.
Maybe
You know
we
what I'm
will.
saying?
Maybe we will.
Well, yeah, but we will. These people will. But do you know what I'm saying? You like really just need to focus on that. And then just another thing I would just say in line with the like not quitting, if I can impart one thing, because before I got this job, I don't know, you know, the day I got this job, I had quit acting and got this job. I would just say more than anything to always bet on yourself. If you have a dream, a belief, a something inside of you, forget what anybody else in the world is telling you. Forget what the facts say that they work out to be. Just always bet on yourself.
I want to make sure that I look back, that we get up there somewhere. So, 2/3 of the way up, right? Yes, you're there.
So you guys have been talking a lot about the fact that you're a true ensemble, and I just want to applaud that 100%. Can you guys speak to the male actors on the set, how you've witnessed them become part of your ensemble, and how they seem to be so embracing of it, and just the dichotomy of the 2/3 majority that you guys have going on, about a 3/4 majority?
Like not move.
I was gonna say, who wants
I
to
mean,
talk about the men?
the truth is, well, first of all, I mean, we love like you know, Nick Sandow and Michael Harney. You know, we really love them, but it is interesting that there's definitely a sense of respect, I think, on our set of like when we show up, it's kind of like that feeling of like we've arrived, you know, and they kind of like, you know, like make space for us to do it. You know what I mean? It's a totally the opposite. I mean, it just really is. It's like it is a female-driven, female-led, female-created show, and so you know, it's more importantly even than how any of the men. I mean, like all like the guys, the actors are all gems. I mean, we really don't have a lot of bad seeds around there, and you know, we shoot in New York. It's like everybody's very grateful. Like we're a lot of journeyman character actors who know that we're lucky to have a job. So I don't think we experience a lot of like, you know, bizarre like egos and shit on our set. But what we don't have is the self-consciousness of being female, you know, which is definitely something that I've experienced of like arriving on a set and feeling the room kind of check you out and kind of like, you know, clock you and give you a, you know, a rating or something, and waiting for you to kind of like see what you got to decide what they think of you, or is the girl gonna be crazy, that kind of, like there's none of that. We're the show, we're the majority, you know what I mean? So we all just fucking show up.
And if I may add to that also, it shows you that even though it's more female driven, there's no superior to the males that are there. It's like we're just a true ensemble. Everyone has a component and everybody's there to do a job, which could be different historically if it was, male dominant. But when it comes to, you act Nick and you act ask all of them, it's pretty much we're all part of this and we all have to contribute our responsibility. So.
And just a sort of last question, because Natasha's brought it up a couple times. When the show premiered, it was sort of a product of Obama's America. It was about, here are the faces you maybe haven't seen on television so much. Look, this is what diversity looks like. Does the show become more important now? Does the show take on a different importance than it did 2 weeks ago?
I would say most definitely yes. I think, look, the facts are that since our show premiered and since President Obama was in residence for his 8-year term, or two terms, 4 years, he's the first sitting president to ever visit a prison, coming after our own premiere of our show. I'm not trying to imply or suggest that he watched Orange is the New Black and then went to go and watch our show, but I think that by visiting and making that a priority during his presidency shows the level of importance as far as the awareness and the conversation is with regards to our prison system. I think we're seeing a lot of movies. Ava DuVernay has The 13th out on Netflix right now, which is an excellent documentary worth watching. I think everybody should watch, which is really highlighting our prison system. And I think that with regards to diversity on television, we're living in a time right now where we don't know the path yet to be mapped for us, regardless of your persuasion. What we know for sure is that we're being called on to be our very best selves. We are being asked to support all individuals in this country equally. And I think that equity should exist also in terms of representation we see reflected on our screens. And for that reason, I think our show and its relevance is important.
I also think what makes America great, and believe me, I've had problems with America, is our First Amendment right to freedom of speech. And it's one of the things that I personally would fight for to the death. And I have said this often, and some people may accuse me of being pedantic, but one must always look evil in the face and call it evil. Therefore, our show is more important now than it's ever been, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's just a flat out straight answer to your question.
Well, in that case, thank all of you for coming out tonight, and thank you to the wonderful actors for